Okay.
Yeah, so I was watching the cartoon Alice in Wonderland from the 50s. And I know like Mathieu
Yeah.
Bergeau said that it's that movie is a perfect representation of sleep. And so I was watching it with that lens and I was really getting it. And then my wife said that that movie represents me the best, like the way my mind works. So I thought that was really funny
Really?
because I'm always like playing songs in my head and like nothing uh makes sense. It's all very silly. But
Yeah.
that's just because she knows me very well. I'm not like that around most people.
Yeah. Do you watch that movie often?
No, I just thought this is the first time I'm watching.
No.
Are
Oh,
you on the
really? Dang.
floor? Are you on
That's
the
cool.
ground?
Yeah, I'm on the ground. Yeah.
That's
Yeah. See the
amazing.
dirt.
I did that for like two
Just-
podcasts, but my stuff is so tight that I just like
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
just switch positions every 2 minutes out of discomfort. But
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm just sitting in the dirt right now. Yeah, I think that's one of those movies I don't know. It deserves a lot of attention, but I just haven't really um I feel like I just don't understand it at all. But so I mean maybe you can explain it to me more when you guys finish or something.
I'm
Alice in
like
Wonderland, the whole.
yeah. No, I'm like watching it being like somewhat a point that you shouldn't understand it because it's like sleep, like Mathieu says.
Mm.
Like sleep doesn't make any sense. It's like a between space type of thing. But I know that the I watched the modern version, which has more of a story to it, and I'm currently over 2/3 of the way in, and I still haven't seen the Red Queen. I don't know if she's coming up. Is she coming up?
Mm.
Do you know?
I think yeah, I think she's probably at least to the I would say the back fourth of it or something.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Because there's like a dragon and
Yeah.
stuff, so I'm sure that there's some symbolic uh thing
Yeah.
to it. But yeah, I haven't gone to that place yet. Thus far, it just feels like a trippy dream, which I
Yeah.
which I like.
That's how it feels to me too, but there's like enough about it to where it feels like maybe just because it kind of was just weirdly pulling on symbols like crazy to where it feels like it should make sense. Like I
Yeah.
should be able to like, but it's only when I put myself in that space of, um, yeah, like that dream space, mental space to where I'm like, oh, this does make sense. Like,
Oh yeah.
of course, the moon would turn into a smile, and it's like, of course that makes, yeah.
Yeah, when you're in that
But
dream state, you just figure stuff out. I know that from like early mornings. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a perfectly sound thing that I was experiencing for the last couple hours. And then I right now I'm like, nope. And then when
yeah,
evening
yeah,
falls, you get back into it. So it's interesting how that works. There's definitely a logic to
yeah,
it. I think that way
yeah,
about magic as well, like watching this movie where sometimes I very briefly apply my materialist lens to the movie and like this is so weird, doesn't make any sense. And then I go back into
yeah,
the child's mind and I'm like, yeah, of course. And it's like a
yeah.
different way of perceiving the world that is well, it's re-enchantment, it's enchantment. It's it's that you're
That makes
seeing
sense.
things make sense. Like you're not even questioning a lot of the things. Whereas I feel like we've been taught to question so much. And that takes away a lot of the
Yeah,
value. Yeah. So that's what I was thinking.
yeah.
Watching.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, I feel like, gosh, who was it? It might have been Luke Thompson. I left a brief message to him, and it was like one of those things where you say something and you're like, I don't really understand what I'm even saying. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna throw it out there. But it was something just kind of the idea of magic. If since the world does exist relationally, it's just kind of the way magic works within that just is
Oh
kind
man,
of
yeah.
quite terrifying, or it can't, or the way it can work. Because even getting at things like, gosh, just where what like in Alice in Wonderland, like this, like I said, the moon being the same as like someone as the smile or something, or like it's just the way the symbols are work so relationally and so almost like one and the same to where you can really just if you know what you're doing, you can kind of play with them, and
Yeah.
then you can get into like the scary stuff. I guess is like voodoo dolls and things like that or
Oh yeah.
something. I don't know,
Yeah, so
but
you're making a really good point. I've noticing this myself as well, that the more I lean into the relational worldview, like I was there intellectually, but the more like I embody it and I see it, the more I'm like, oh yeah, the world is magic. Like there's
yeah,
the reality of magic is it's very much there, but it's not in the same way that I thought it was. The way I thought it was like easily projectable. but now it's like, okay, reality lays itself out in
Yeah.
a meaningful manner, and that just makes a lot of these things make sense. And I feel kind of stupid from before.
No, same here.
Yeah,
Same.
yeah,
I do too. And a lot of times, even still now, even knowing certain things, it's only in like weirdly in hindsight where
yeah,
I feel like I can see, oh, this was actually working or something.
yeah,
And it's usually like I think I probably mentioned in our last conversation, there's like a system or yeah, there's like a system to magic to where it almost feels like too karmic for me or something. Like
yeah,
I'm gonna pull an energy from over here to you to like I have this will I want to get out, so I'm gonna pull energy from here to force my will or whatever
yes,
I desire. And then I'm like, I'm just worried about that slingshot, that boomerang coming back and getting me. But then at the same time, I believe in it so much now that I'm kind of too terrified to do it. But on the other hand, it's like I find you just find yourself weirdly doing it all the time, just with like little rituals or even little superstitions or something. It's like I'll just find myself being like even little religious rituals or something. Like I was talking to Cal, I don't know, yeah, Cal that we're in the signal chat with
Mr.
the
Coolman.
other day, and yeah, he Mr. Coleman, yeah,
Shout
as
out, bro.
he I was yeah, I was having a really rough day, and he just a weird day where I just had that like a weird sinking in my gut, and I just couldn't get rid of it. And so he called me and prayed the Seven Sorrows Rosary with me. But he said that he's been praying it this because there's seven sorrows you go through. You pray like seven, I think seven Hail Marys on each one too. And he said he's been praying it 7 times a day, almost like a magic ritual. And so it's like even little things like that. It's like it's so impactful, but you almost don't even see it until hindsight. You're just like, why am I doing this? I don't really know why I'm doing this. I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna pray this rosary 7 times a day for like 7 days or something. And then you at the end of it, you're just like, holy crap, I'm a completely different person. This is
Yeah,
just wild. Yeah.
yeah, and I do think there's a distinction between different magical rituals. I think especially the ones I don't know exactly why, but I have this intuition that when there's sacrifice involved and it's
Mhm.
not self-sacrifice, I think there's more potential for that karmic thing to sling back at you.
Yeah, definitely. That's terrifying. Yeah. Did I tell you about the Joseph statue thing in Catholicism?
No, what is it?
I don't know. I was so tempted to do it. My parents bought a house over the summer. They went into it with my uncle and they were trying to fix it up and sell it. So they did all this remodeling and then they were trying to put it on the market and it just as far as I know, it still hasn't sold and it's just been sitting there. But they were having such a tough time uh selling it. And it weirdly seemed like synchronistic or something because right at the time they were really getting frustrated was somehow I don't even know how I heard about it, but apparently there's this ritual in Catholicism where you take a little statue of Joseph,
Yeah.
Father Joseph, and I think you're supposed to bury him in the yard, and then help you sell the house or
Yeah,
something.
I've heard you say
And I
this.
was just like, yeah, and I might have said it in our last conversation. I
No,
was like,
no.
I don't know if I could do this. I didn't do it, but I don't know. Maybe I should have. Who knows? I don't know. But even that, like it, because that kind of feels like, hmm, I guess I'm trying to tie that into where you say like it's not weirdly feels kind of not self-sacrificial because
Yeah.
it's like I want them to sell the house. This is my will. And I'm like, I'm gonna pull energy from somewhere. I don't know where it's coming from to make this thing happen
Yeah, it feels
rather
instrumental.
than weird. Yeah. Rather than really being like humbly submissive to powers that be or
Yeah.
whatever, or
No,
God's
that's
will.
actually
Yeah.
that's exactly right. You're wording it super well.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, no, no,
So
totally
I
that.
don't know.
I was thinking about magic when you were speaking, and I think one of the reasons it feels icky is that um, it's it feels unnatural because it's imposing our will on it, let's say. So I think that I've been thinking about this a lot, that there's this power to becoming more natural. And the more natural you are, the more harmonious you are, yeah, the better things seem to be, the more imbalanced things seem to be. And that's a good thing, I think. And then the magic seems to be sort of like an opposite to that. At least it can be. It can be
Mhm.
that very quickly because it's this idea of stepping out. You're seeing the patterns, um, And one thing is seeing the patterns and then just complying and doing things according to the patterns. Another thing is like, okay, I see the patterns, I can step out of them and I can manipulate them. And then I think freaky things could happen.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah. I
I've been on a
completely.
deep dive also on your channel. It's been really fun. I
Oh,
like
yeah, I bet it's weird.
I'm at a
It's all over the
point
place.
where I'm like, I hear the intro song and I'm just getting so excited. What is the song actually? Can you tell me?
The so the really old ones, I just it was some like stock, like kind of had a merry-go-round feel or something, some stock song. I don't even know what it was. And then the violin one is my sister played it. So I have three sisters, two younger ones, and my youngest sister Natalie wrote a song called it was called like Songs I Don't Love or something, and we liked the melody of it. And so my other younger sister Melissa just played the melody on her violin to it. Yeah.
That's super
So
cool.
if you want to hear the actual song, it doesn't really sound like that violin part. The violin part on its own feels like kind of Celtic or something. It's
Yeah,
pretty,
yeah,
it's, I don't know if Celtic's the right word, but it's cool.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. I
the
do
actual
feel that.
song is different, whole different vibe. But
Is it a cool
yeah,
song?
uh, it's, I guess, I don't know. We put it on our album and we all kind of feel like it's one of the cheesiest or like our least favorite song on the album. It's the first one on it though,
Okay,
so it
okay.
introduces the whole album, but then oddly enough, I mean, it has the most plays too. I think maybe because it's kind of the catchiest or something, and that's
So it's
probably
out
why we
there.
feel like it's cheesy. What?
It's out there for people to listen to.
Yeah, yeah, it's on all the streaming stuff,
Yeah, can you
Spotify.
send it to me later? I can link it down here for
Yeah, yeah, I
I'd
can
love
do
to
that.
listen to
Do
that.
you use Spotify or YouTube or what?
Spotify I use, but you can send
Okay,
me the
yeah,
links. Cool. By the way, did you
okay,
want to
yeah, I'll do
respond
that.
to the magic thing? I'm sorry I cut you off. I was just getting excited about your
Oh
intro.
no, no, no. About the intro. No, no. I do want to ask you though, if you have you so what's like now that you've been digging into it more, what you've discovered, like I know you found that book, if you've cracked that open at all or anything like that.
Oh no, I've asked Phantastes for my birthday now because of you.
Okay.
So you can tell maybe you can say a bit about this book before I go on to my viewers who don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good book to reference. I was actually the one you sent me in the chat though, you found some at a thrift store was the one I was bringing up,
Oh, that one. No, I
that one
didn't
with that
buy it.
weird.
I just
Yeah,
sent you
yeah.
the title because I thought it was funny. But
Oh, you didn't
if
okay.
you're gonna read it,
Yeah,
let
yeah.
me know because then I'll read it as well. That'd be super cool too.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I can. I might have to pick up something like that at some point. But because that's always one thing that fascinates me, where there's this weird blending between charismatic Christian practices or something. I guess it might be call them in
Yeah, yeah.
magic
So just
rituals. But anyway,
so people know what we're actually talking about. I sent Jason.
okay.
I was in a thrift store, and I sent Jason a picture of a book, and the book was called
Let me
Charisma.
see.
Do you have your phone here? I don't know.
I got
Yeah,
it right
yeah.
here. Yeah, let's see.
He's
It
gonna pull it
says
up in a second.
Pentecostalism and witchcraft, spiritual warfare in Africa and Melanesia.
Um,
And it's got a weird like a cross on the front and like a charred hand or something. I don't understand what's going
yeah.
on. It looks
But that's what I'm
intense.
saying about Africa. I think I mentioned that last conversation. There's a lot of magic going on there, but it's all like intertwined with the religion. It's super cool. So,
Yeah, that's cool.
okay, but go on about
Yeah.
Fantastic. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's I mean, I think it's a great book. I just love everything by George Macdonald. Um there recently we were going through it and we kind of started a little book club study thing here. That kind of course fell apart after a little while, but um it's that along with the movie The Green Knight and oddly enough Bambi, I feel like all have weirdly similar vibes. And I think that it's kind of almost so the reason I say this because Rebecca was reading it and my girlfriend Rebecca, but she about halfway through the book, she told me it just wasn't grabbing her. She was like, I don't really like reading this at all. And she being a female said like it feels like it's morely just geared towards men. I don't know if it was intentional that way
Oh,
because it almost seems like kind of an archetypal story, not coming into manhood story, but almost like that wrestle of becoming a knight, or becoming chivalrous, becoming an actual like gentleman. Like, what's the difference between being like a beastly man or being like a a gentleman, a chivalrous knight.
Yeah.
So it kind of has the same vibe of and he references in Phantastes a lot. He'll reference uh what's that King Arthur story? Percival. Yeah,
Yeah.
Sir Percival.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it's kind of got that, yeah, that vibe
Ah,
too.
that's why,
But
because I kept hearing this name that I know from the King Arthur movie. One of the bad guys, his name was like so specific, and I kept seeing that name because I listened to it on audiobook a little bit now already. And I heard all these names and I was like, this is King Arthur stuff. But I wasn't aware that
yeah,
it was intentional. That's cool.
yeah. The cool thing with Phantastes too, though, the other thing I like about it too is he will weirdly blend. Um, he blends like the natural world with the spirit world. In a very, I don't even want to say unique way. Like it almost feels just like how
Yeah.
it should be or something.
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
even with the Percival story, he'll like blend it in, and then like where Percival in the King Arthur story, he has some encounter with this maiden, this seductress female character in the Percival story, and then in the Fantasy story, he has an encounter with like the maiden of the alder tree. So he has like
Yeah,
an
yeah.
encounter with this tree, yeah. And but it's like weirdly blending the two, and I'm like, I don't know how this guy does this, but it feels uh I don't know that it's that magical. It's definitely enchanted. I mean, it probably is full of magic as well. And there's certain aspects of it that I guess I would say probably are magic that I don't quite um understand. That Rebecca just seemed to pick up intuitively. Like there's one part that seems magical where he there's a tree that cuts off some of the leaves of her hair so he can wear it as a belt. And that's like a weird theme that goes on in a lot of I think Knight stories too. Like the Green Knight, the movie, I know he gets that green sash from his mom to wear around his waist. And I don't understand. That's what I mean. There's a way it works. Like when he loses the sash, he's susceptible to harm, but then weirdly, like keeping the sash is kind of his downfall. And I don't understand it.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, the way I don't know the Phantastes, I just think is a man. It's probably my favorite book. And every time, even this past time reading it, like there's parts I get to where I just start crying because I'm just like, man, this is it's just intense. For me, it is. But then like I said, Rebecca reads it and she's like, "No, I don't really care. This
And
isn't
do
that
you cry in
interesting." I'm
like
like, "All right."
moments that are emotional specifically, or is it just what type of parts of the book do you cry at, do you think?
Um, Probably emotional.
Yeah.
They just there's certain parts and lines in it where I just um I think I read it at a time too where I was kind of like struggling with grief. So I think it was weirdly like that book walked me through grief. And there's it's the whole book, the entire book is just kind of the weird, like I said, interplay with masculine and feminine and how do those kind of interact together. And maybe it's from a more masculine perspective, but like there's parts where that just kind of hit me in here and you could kind of almost bypass your head. Like the part with the beech tree. I think you've
Yeah.
probably been through that where he runs
Yeah.
and then I may love him, for he is man, and I'm just a beech tree. And I'm like, oh man, like that just gets me every time. But then there's other parts where I'm trying to think specifically. There's one part where it almost always makes me cry, where he's like, I think it's right before he comes to this lady's house. And the only way I know how to describe her is that she's like the grandmother, like the mother of mothers or something like that. But I think it's right before he lands on her shore and he's floating in this boat. And I think he looks in the water or something and it says like he sees like all these faces of departed loved ones that are just floating before him. And then their faces just have this look on them that say that they knew nothing of the grave. And he says he comes to this point where their their faces have such forgiveness on him or something that he comes to this point where he's almost glad that he had sinned or something like that
Mhm.
because their faces are just so bursting with love. And that part, just every time I
Yeah,
read that, I'm just like, oh man, that just I don't know.
that hits
It's a good
me.
book.
That's beautiful. Yeah, so I
Yeah.
heard
He's
that.
got a way with words too.
Yeah, he does.
Sorry, what?
He does. No, I was gonna say that I heard that Tolkien and Lewis were. was it Tolkien and Lewis were inspired by his work also. So he
Y-
preceded them. He's like this book is from the 19th century, I think, late 19th.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he wrote it when he was like 30. It's
that's so
wild.
cool. Yeah,
He
also,
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's trying to think. It's so Phantastes is set in I've probably told you this already too. Like Phantastes, I think is set in fairyland. That's the best way to describe it. It's kind of weirdly a walk through fairyland. And then that's my favorite of his. Lilith, I think, is probably the most profound. It might be one of the most profound theological books I've ever read too. And it's not like it's all story, like like Phantastes is just like you're reading a story. But Lilith is set in the spirit world. It's not really set in like fairyland. It just
ah,
and that book is a trip because that book is like two things are the same. Like two things that don't even seem together like are the same thing. And it's just the first time I read that book, the first two-thirds of it, you're just like, or at least for me, I was like, I don't really know what's going on. And then the last bit of it, it like just weirdly all weaves together and you're like, oh, that's what's happening here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I need
And
to
that
put it
one's
on
really
my
good.
wish list too.
Yeah.
I really struggle
It'd
with
be
asking
interesting.
for the right presents, and then I was like, oh, I can ask for this book because it's very like it's something I can
Yeah.
get.
So you said it's for your birthday?
Yeah, and my birthday is on Halloween as well as my dad's, and we both struggle always with making like wish lists. Um,
Yeah.
and so usually I put on really stupid stuff like really practical things, and people don't like it, or I put way too emotional things like I asked them to make a poem for me or something, and so it ends up being something in between. But I like asking for books. I think that's fun. So
Yeah.
I'll put
Yeah.
that one on as well.
Well, happy early birthday.
Thank you, man. When is your birthday?
Yeah. May 22nd. So it's
May
ways away.
22nd. Well, it's in the
Yeah.
video now, so that allows me to
Yeah. Yeah.
remember. Normally, I write them down.
Everybody go. Really? Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I need to
I
get
have a
better
whole
at that.
log.
I probably miss 99% of it, people's birthdays. I don't know.
Do you
But
know a lot of people? Are you
I guess
extroverted
I
as
do
a person?
now. No, I don't think I am. I mean, I'm not like introverted where I will uh shut down. I do hit a point a lot quicker where I feel like I kind of need some alone time maybe.
Yeah,
But even I think I just mostly like smaller groups better. Like if I'm in crowds, I don't like big crowds, but I don't mind people at all.
yeah,
But
me too. I think I'm the same as you.
yeah.
But I was talking about your podcast. That's where, yeah. Okay, now I'm back where we were. I
Okay.
was talking about your podcast, and then I went on
Okay.
about Phantastes. No, so for those who don't
Yeah.
know, Jason got a podcast. It's called Almond Tree. It's got a really cool intro. And what I like about it thus far a lot is, well, I like you. I think you're really good at hosting to start. And I like the people that you find in all corners of the world. So I've been listening
Thanks.
to some of the ones you sent me. So you interviewed some witches, and that's been really interesting to listen to for me. I listened to the one with this lady. She's got dark hair, and she had this story with her cat that died. Do you remember this one?
Wait, oh, was it Celeste?
Yes.
Celeste Mott? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm
Yeah,
just
I remember that. That
love
was
it.
from like 2 years ago or something, I think. Maybe.
And I was wondering, like, it seems very organic. Like, I was looking at your uploads, and like you would have two in a row, 2 days in a row, and then none for a month, and then you would have one, and then I just love that. I think it's like so. It feels so organic. I think it's really pure. The your podcast
Thanks.
and the setup. So yeah,
I'd
it's
like
good
to
for
get a
me
better
for fun.
schedule, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it feels like it feels real. Like a lot of these things they can get overproduced very quickly, and
Mm.
yeah, just it feels like sitting in on a conversation. And I used to listen to a lot of podcasts, and I kind of lost my taste for it. And now I have like a couple of them, like maybe three or four that I still listen to, and I added this one, so it's worth listening to,
Oh,
guys. If you're listening, it's super fun.
thanks.
And also the book, you
Thanks.
did a series on Phantastes. So for people listening
Oh,
that want to read the book, you did some episodes about some chapters, I think, with some of your friends.
Yeah, yeah. There's like I don't know, like probably at least 4 times now I've tried to do like book series on that book, and it always ends. I think Grail Country
Yeah,
channel.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. For me and Sherry and Luke Johnston, this other guy, I don't know if you met him yet. He, we all decided to do. We were like, let's go through Phantastes. Let's read through that together on there. I think we did the first chapter, and then Sherry was like, no, let's do something else. And so we ended up doing like they did a whole series on the imagination, which is another George Macdonald essay, which is, I mean, it's freaking phenomenal. You can really sink your teeth into that. But
cool.
even that, like, it just still was a flop. So we haven't, I think it's what the first 4 chapters on my channel or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
It never really gets too far. But yeah. Well, thanks. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I've been enjoying yours too.
thanks, man.
I'm kind of in the same spot where it's, yeah, I haven't had as much of a taste for podcasts. Plus, I just haven't had as much time. And so I think when I don't have as much time too, I just sometimes will just revert to like, I just want to find something funny.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah, really feel that. I need that as well. It's
yeah,
it's when you're resting, you just need something funny. I'm like that.
yeah,
And I'll tell you, I'll tell the people at home. Jason put me in this group with his friends on Signal. That's been really fun too. We're like a
yeah,
group chat I was thrown into with two other guys, Cal and Mitch,
yeah,
and it's been really
yeah.
funny. Uh, just to like,
They're on my channel a lot.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's been interesting because it helps me to get to know you because they're your friends and yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, they're
So,
good. They're good guys. Both of them are. Yeah, I probably talk to them the most out of both of my friends. But yeah.
do they live far from you? Like, is
There's
it purely digital?
yeah, we're spread out. So Mitch is in Atlanta, and then Cal is in Texas, and I'm in Colorado. I was in Tennessee, so I was only about about 3 hours from Mitch. But then now I'm how far now? Long way.
Long way.
But yeah,
How's the
yeah.
move?
Oh, gee, it was how was the move? So I moved with Rebecca, and we just she has a house out here that she rents. She bought a house this summer and rents out the top rooms and stuff. But she lives in an RV. I bought an RV last fall, and so I just left mine back at home because when we started dating, she was going to move out here, and then we just got in the RV together. So we drove all the way across. We first went down to Florida, spent about at least a week there with some of her family, her aunt and uncle. And then from there, we just made the trek out to Colorado. But yeah, it was a journey because, like, things go wrong, like
Yeah.
on the car. The speedometer started freaking out, and then the radiator was leaking into, we had to get a new radiator because it was leaking into the transmission or something.
Mm.
And it was causing it to shift bad. And then, yeah, so it was a trip, but we made it. So we rolled in
Do you like to drive?
to Colorado. What do I like to drive?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I like driving
You
actually.
do?
Yeah. Do you? Yeah.
No, I'm really bad at it actually. I'm like I heard there's this like thing among people that they often overestimate their driving, and I definitely don't. Like I'm well below average. Um like I haven't used
Yeah.
gears in a while. Like I know in America it's normal to use automatic cars. Is that true?
Oh yeah, yeah, I use automatic. I don't even know how to drive stick. I wish I did. I'm kind of embarrassed about that. I uh I tried to learn once, maybe twice, and my dad had this old Chevy truck. It was this yellow, just beat up truck. And then it was one of those that's just so hard to like if you don't get it right, it just dies so
Yeah.
easily. And he was like, "Yeah, if you can learn on this, you can learn on anything." And then I just remember he made me go on this hill, and there's like other cars, and I'm just like killing and I was like, it was, I was like, I'm not doing this again. No, screw
No,
this. So
it's
yeah.
terrifying if you're not used to. Like we all need to learn how to drive stick. Well, most of us do in the Netherlands. That's normal. In Europe in general, actually. And once I got my license, I just drove automatic for 2, 3 years. And I was
Yeah.
comfortable at the start because I had a job that I had to drive for every day, and so I got into the rhythm. But then when I moved out here, um, like I don't need a car, everything's super close, so we use bicycles for everything.
Um,
And then we moved within the city, and then I had to drive this van, and it has a stick. It was with a stick, and it just went so bad. Like it
I
kept
bet
like stopping and in the middle of the city. It was just the worst experience.
that sucks. That
Yeah.
sounds awful. Yeah,
Yeah,
I say I like driving, but I don't like driving in the city. I would rather walk than drive
yeah.
in the city. I like when you can get on a country road and just cruise and
And
like
we
a
don't really
long
have
night
those,
drive with
man.
no traffic.
Yeah,
Oh man, you're
we have a small country. It's like so dense in terms of population.
uh
It's just a different experience. Like it's nothing like the US.
yeah. Yeah, if you came over back where before I moved, East Tennessee, like where I used to live, it was just this highway and like even during like rush hour times when people are going back and home from work, there's hardly anybody on there. So if you get there like on that highway at night, like there's just nobody. And you can just drive. It's so nice. You would probably like driving then. You
Yeah,
could
I think so too.
do that. Yeah.
Cool. Talk to me about the topics you were proposing in our chat.
Oh yeah, our chat.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what were they again? It was I don't know. I'd
Relics
like
and
to get
stuff.
your okay, yeah. I mean if you I'd like to get your perspective on all this stuff too. So if you got any ideas, let
Cool.
me know.
Yeah, yeah.
But the reason it came up, I messaged you because I think it was Rebecca and I and like I said, our friend Drake were talking in the kitchen and I don't know how it came up, but we were I don't know how it started, but somehow Bethel Church came up as well. And that's a church in Redding, California that's been like just kind of a big mega church and there's been a lot of weird controversy over it sometimes. But I remember it was a few years ago they had some sort of I don't know what you'd even call it. I guess rumors where because they're a church and a school, so you can go there for like I don't know what kind of school. I guess like Bible school or something. But a lot of their students were reportedly like going and laying on these graves to try to suck up spirits from the graves.
Oh,
And so
wow.
yeah, and so it was interesting talking to them about that because then the pastor and the assistant pastor, I think both came out and they said, we never told any of our students to do this. We don't know where this comes from. Maybe it comes from this. There's a passage in the Bible where they have uh not Elijah, Elisha, his bones, they bury his bones, and then some guys, some robbers or something are running away. And one of them I think gets killed. I don't remember exactly, but he gets tossed into Elisha's grave. And when his body touches the bones of Elisha, he comes back to life. Not Elisha, but the other guy. So it's almost like there's this residue of some sort of power in Elisha's bones. And so that's kind of that one idea where it's like you can just throw it out completely and be like, oh, these kids are crazy doing this. But then it's like, well, you have a whole that's what Rebecca was saying too. Like they have Catholic and like Eastern Orthodox buildings that are built with the bones of dead saints. Like they keep those as relics because there's
Yeah,
like some holy anointing on them. And so it's like, and even just small relics, like I'll have a rosary, and it's like if I pray on the rosary, it's like the one I use all the time. It's like there's something special about it. Like there's just like a weird it it really even objects kind of retain this weird sort of spirit
yeah.
that I think you can even put into them. And so
Mhm.
that made me mention like prayer cloths. Like I grew up with in like word of faith, like the health, wealth, prosperity stuff. And so the one thing they would quite often do, actually, it was pretty common, was there's a verse in Acts where it says the Apostle Paul, they take cloths from him, I think like just like his work clothes or something, and they use those, and those are healing people. Like his clothes that he wore are healing people. And so there was this idea where you would basically pray over cloths or just some sort of clothing, and you would impart healing into the cloth, and then you'd give it to someone, and then they would get healed. And even that, though, I mean, that's why I had that original one of my might have been one of my first conversations with one of those people in the more occult community. Um, my friend Wei Wang. She's a really sweet
I
lady.
listened to it.
But yeah, she's super nice. But that's one of the reasons I want to talk to her because she spins yarn. She would call herself a witch, or at least she did then. But she said she would spin yarn with intention, and I was like, that sounds just like prayer cloths.
Yeah.
But like we were talking about before, all of reality exists relationally. So when I start, like you were talking about living that way, if I'm actually starting to move into that mode of being, it's like it just seems like so legit that that's possible. Like you can actually put intention into a yarn, like on the smallest detail, like or not smallest, but like one example might be like when you were a kid, your mom knit you a little like blanket or something, and you've kept it your whole life. It's like, why would you keep it? It's because there's intention there. Your mother's love is in that fabric, and it's like so. If it works that way, I would think it could also work. Like you could put curses in something too if you wanted to, but I don't really know.
I think
But
so.
so that was just yeah, that's why I wanted to bring those things up because those things I kind of find fascinating with yeah, like the prayer cloths and just objects and holy relics and things like that. Like you can have cursed objects. I mean, I've heard of that before. You can go into people talk about that all the time, like getting something at an antique store and they're like, I gotta get rid of this thing. And then the other side is you can have like holy relics, things like that that people will hold on and cherish. So I don't know.
And
What
then
are your thoughts
everything is
around
the
that?
same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's definitely truth to it. Especially the positive side makes sense to me. I definitely
Yeah.
think that I have those types of objects in terms of them being infused with love or meaning and spirit. Like when you get like my grandparents passed away and like divide up some of the little things in the house, and I do feel that there's a spirit there for sure. It also keeps that alive. I
Yeah.
don't know. Did you see the movie Coco? Disney?
Yeah, but it's only I don't remember much of it. It was been so long.
Oh yeah. Well, anyway, that's it's not exactly the same, but there it's all about if you have the picture up of the deceased people, they stay alive in the spirit realm. And
Mm.
I don't know. It's the same in ancient Egypt where you actually have to keep feeding the dead. So you go to their graves, and it's actually a massive business. My teacher, one of my teachers, he wrote a book about these two guys, and there's a bunch of these records from their uh, shop or like their work. They were people that were responsible for keeping the dead fed, let's say so to speak. So the Egyptians would, when you get mummified, you get your grave, you get your tomb if you're rich enough to afford it. Someone or the
Yeah.
family themselves would keep going to their place and like keep feeding them, and sometimes there'd be a statue, and the spirit of the person would be in the statue. Or the Egyptians had like 9 words for different types of spirits. So one of the ka would be there. And yeah, anyway, it reminds me of that because yeah, I absolutely think that objects can be infused with spirit, and then curses probably too. But I'm not sure how that
Mm.
one works. I'd have to think about it a bit longer. I wonder if
I don't know either.
you'd have to know
Sorry, go
about it.
ahead.
Like if you wouldn't know about, like if you pick up an antique object, if you don't have any knowledge that it could be cursed. Like, is that
Yeah.
out of your hands, or maybe when you know about it, that's when it starts to work on you, like quantum? I don't know. Starting to run.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
That is really interesting. Yeah, like your interaction with it consciously is what causes it to actually work,
That's what
the
I think.
curse. I don't know. The weird way uh part of me thinks that's at least half true. I guess the reason I'm a little hesitant, like why I think it works probably without you knowing as well, is because um and I mean this happened to me and I think it's probably I've heard it's happened to a lot of other people too, where you buy a house and it's like haunted the idea of haunted house is like you buy a house and there's just like weird stuff going on and it's like you didn't know it was cursed or haunted or whatever or something like that. Like the first when I bought my house, the first night I stayed there, I had two friends stay with me and every single one of us had nightmares, like these just awful nightmares.
Yeah, I definitely
And
think there's
then,
truth to that, actually.
yeah. So I would think
Yeah.
if that's the case, I would think there's weirdly yeah, that you can do that with objects too. I'm not really sure how. Like that's the thing. This stuff is fascinating, but I don't really know how it all works. Um there's a did you ever watch that show Vikings?
Bits, but yeah, my dad and my brother did.
Okay. There's one part at at the end. So okay, so there's okay, I'm gonna reference the Vikings one first. Then there's another like show that was kind of like a Vikings-ish show. I can't remember the name of it. The Last Kingdom, I think was the name of that show
Oh,
on Netflix. Anyways, the Vikings one, I think it's toward the end. This guy marries a witch, and I don't know what if he says something to her, he pisses her off, and she basically like does this ritual and like cuts herself, like puts her blood in it, like all these herbs, and she just makes this little object thing and puts it under his pillow at night, and he wakes up blind. And I was so like, I don't know if that it's weird because it's like it happens in the show. Of course, it's extremely physical. I don't know if like that's what I mean. I feel like that everything is more interwoven than it appears to be because that just almost seems like almost like a one-to-one
yeah, it
uh
maybe feels too
very
causal.
materialistic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
might
But
also.
in the show The Last Kingdom, sorry, I was just making in the Last Kingdom one, there's like I think it's the third season. The guy kind of I think he marries a witch in that one too. But it's weirdly like she gets in his consciousness and then he starts losing battles because she's like in his head and he's yeah, it's weird, but kind of like what you were talking about. Like he's but he can't shake it either. Like he has to eventually just kill her to like break the curse, so to speak.
Oh,
Yeah.
like kill her
But I don't know.
physically or kill the spirit?
Yeah, he kills her. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think he drowns her or something. I don't know. Yeah.
yeah. No, I think that definitely can happen, but I think that partially has to do with some people embodying archetypes. So, if a witch embodies an archetype, maybe an archetype of the strange, I'm not sure, whatever it may be, then that archetype can start taking a hold of you. Like you can start
Mm.
when that equates to one another. I think archetypes are definitely real. I don't doubt that. And then you can start to see them pop up in your dreams and and battle them and stuff like that, or befriend them or talk to them, like Jung did. So yeah, I think there's
Hmm.
definitely truth to that. Haunted house. I've never had something like that. My parents, but I'd also think you could build, um, so you could bless a house that's been haunted. I think that maybe could fix it.
Mm.
But
Yeah, I think so.
as a kid, I would laugh at this stuff so hard. It's like this, like an exorcist or whatever. And I think it's similar to astrology, where a lot of modern people they kind of like fool people with this stuff, and it's very easy to like make people believe nonsense.
Mm.
But I think that there's
Yeah.
probably some ancient original truth to it. And so, same with exorcists and people that can take the evil spirits out of a place. I think that that's
Yeah.
definitely a thing.
Yeah. I completely agree. The more I think about it, and weirdly, honestly, like the more I even try to think about it logically, I guess I would say, the more it kind of almost seems to make sense. But I don't know if logically is the right word. Maybe it does. Maybe it is just having to view the world in a relational aspect.
Yeah,
But that to me seems
it
logic
is
because like the
logical.
more I think about that, yeah, the more I'm like, that's just undeniable. Like nature works that way. Everything works that way. But then even things like hauntings, it just seems like there's a lot of times there's so many different categories where people have different names for spirits and they get conflated. So it gets confusing. But like even just hauntings, I've heard people describe it as like just uh almost like a traumatic memory or something that just keeps repeating in a
Yeah,
place or something. And
yeah,
I don't know how that I have no idea. It's weird because it's like I don't know how that would work, but it almost weirdly seems plausible because of the relationality of the world.
yeah,
And it's like even where I am today, I would like who I am, the way everything I think, the way my consciousness is, would not be what it is if it wasn't even for those ancient Egyptians back then that were doing all this weird stuff. So like somehow they might be able to haunt. I don't know. Or because it's like I don't and weirdly it could just be through some subconscious thing that I would be completely unaware of most of the time. Or I don't know. Uh in the idea, like I don't even know if there's any legitimacy to this at all, but I've heard there is an idea of genetic memory being passed down, something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's so I don't know what to do with any of that either.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know.
Well, we can start here.
But
If there
okay.
is there reality to a connection between a spiritual reality and a material reality in terms of location. So, could you think of any examples outside of like haunted houses, but things that you're more sure of that you could say the spiritual reality is connected to the location? Maybe like a church or a cemetery, where you
The spiritual
manifest
reality.
like how do I say this properly? If that wasn't true, what I'm trying to explain, then a church could be anything could be a church, let's say. So a church is like
Hmm,
it's a place where there's a concentration of spirituality. Do you know what I mean?
gotcha.
And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
in a
yeah.
similar manner that could
That's
work with objects, I think. It's just even
yeah,
more
yeah, yeah.
specified.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, that makes sense. That's yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because the object. Okay, so this kind of the other thing that I put in the chat that we haven't got to yet was the idea of magic circles, and this is something that's kind of more. I feel like I'm kind of getting a grasp at it a little bit, but I don't know what to do with it still. So maybe you could help me out. But trying to think of the best way to explain this as objects too. Because this idea seems to me to be kind of connected to everything. Like even when Luke Thompson will talk about just words being spell casting and things like
Yeah,
that. Because any circle, it's like kind of just a closed container. So it's an object, like it's a sacred vessel, I guess you could say. Like you would in magic rituals, they draw a circle around on the ground. And that circle, like it's a big deal that that circle has to be complete. There can't be any break in it. I don't know. Like this is just what I've heard. Like if there's a break in it and you're summoning a spirit, like then they can actually get to you. But if it's like security, there's an in and an out or something. But that seems to me like even with objects, like we were talking about, like an object is closed off, it's defined. The way a
yes.
word is too. A word, like you could say a word and it has a certain meaning. It's boxed in a
Yeah.
way. It's got an enclosure. And then that weirdly, if you have the closed circle, um, it's like a form of attention and intention or something. Like you're focusing all this energy into one small space or excluding all this other energy. But that it's same with like I guess a magic cauldron or something. It's just a you're putting all this stuff in there and it's brewing. It's like a womb. It's like fermenting in this thing. It's all of that stuff. And so I still don't really know what to do with all of that, but that seems to me like the way you mentioned a church, like a churches to me feel like that too. It's like a
Yeah.
building you construct for a specific purpose. This is a place to worship God. The attention is on God. The intention is, I mean, I guess you could have a church for something, for different things, like maybe more humanitarian stuff. I don't know, but like whatever your intention is, it's like weirdly your vow is made, your circle is drawn. I've made my vow
Yeah.
to be committed and
Yeah.
dedicated to this. And in that vow is some sort of fermentation of power. And that's why, I mean, honestly, that's why I think the health, wealth, and prosperity stuff actually works, is because it's so like it is being involved in it, it is so exclusive. Like it is to where that's why people don't like it because it does feel like magic because it is you will read the scriptures and you just ignore all the scriptures where it says I am the Lord, I wound, and like all the scriptures where God could make you sick. It's like don't take those, take only the healing verses and just use those, and like it's basically like this is God's will. I'm going with it. There's power in my words as a creature that God created, and I'm just gonna speak this thing into being. Like it's very, very just intentional. And it's closing off everything else. It's like God's will is to heal and nothing else. And that's it. And you're just like, but I mean, there's power in that confidence and authority, I guess you could say, or assurance or something.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, I don't know. So all of that seems, like I said, I'm not quite sure what to do with it yet. It all just seems so woven together to me.
Yeah.
With the idea of magic circles, and even that being even included in marriage too. It's like if you're committed to one person,
So
there's like weirdly, I mean, that's how you have children, or
yeah.
you know, it's or at least biblically, that's how it says you have children. You commit to one person. There's not harlotry, and then you are able to have that womb, that circle, that vow, and everything's holy. And like, I mean, the whole Numbers 5 thing, which is Numbers 5 in the Bible is basically if you're, it's that weird ritual where the wife, if she's been unfaithful, she'll be barren, but if she has been faithful, her womb will be healed, and then she'll
Um,
have children. So yeah, I don't know. All of that is yeah. What are your thoughts
no,
around that? Got
no,
anything?
no. Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm thinking. So this the circle thing, it seems to symbolize like particularity. So it's a microcosm of
Mhm.
or micro, maybe it's not a micro, but it's a manifestation of particularity, like just the way a church is and just the way object is. You're saying it has a beginning, it has an end, and it's defined. It's a defined,
Yeah,
explicit pattern, and therefore you can infuse it in with spirit. I think that's what you're saying. And so does that
yeah,
also mean
yeah,
that if you don't have a defined, well, if it's not defined, it's not a thing, I guess. And so it can't be indwelled. Would that be fair?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think so. And yeah, yeah, I think that is fair. And then part of me just wonders if my view on it is so vague and so broad to where it loses coherency, because if I'm viewing magic circles that way, then like it's just any contained, which is basically any incarnation. Like it's literally these boards behind me. It's like it's solid, like you're talking about. It's contained. It's like it's separate from the thing
Yeah,
next to it, which is just any incarnation. And then it can, and I think is endued with, or yeah, and I don't know if that's the right word, endowed with some sort of spirit.
for sure.
Um, yeah. And so that would, I mean, I think that kind of gets maybe to even yeah, just putting curses or blessings on even small things. Because like the wood behind me, I guess the spirit it would have is just kind of like just to be made into a fence or something. But you could change that or rearrange that or put a different spirit or intention into those things. I don't know. It's just fascinating to me. I'm not sure
No,
how
no,
it all
I'm
works,
following you.
but
I'm following you. And it reminds me of
yeah.
Job. It's like, everything, symbolism happens. Everything has a meaning. So these boards that you have behind you, they serve the purpose of to be a fence to, it's also it's a border. It's like yeah, it keeps things out and it keeps things in safely, let's say. So everything has some sort of
Yeah.
purpose, like that. And when it
Yeah.
doesn't, it feels stale and dead, but everything is capable of transformation. That's
Hmm.
that's incarnated, I
Yeah,
think.
and I think that's even got to do with like, what we are, what is man, and even that whole question. It's like what is our always we seemingly have this weird sort of striving upwards and onwards. And
Yeah.
it's like just keep this thing going. Like we have this striving for this spirit um we want not only like project in the world, but actually have in our own being is what continues on. And so I think that's this constant wrestling of like, yeah, what spirit are we of? What spirit are we living? And does it have an end? Does it have an ending point? And and I don't know. Yeah, it's just fascinating because it's yeah, it's all those combating, like people talk about that, just I mean, and then in so many different ways, just with your wrestling with your own pleasures and the fleeting things of life and like this and that, your carnal nature. And it's like these are different, I guess, competing spirits
Yeah.
that want a body, that want a vessel to incarnate or something. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
weirdly,
wanna go
the
ahead.
one that like well, I was just gonna say, and weirdly, it seems like the one spirit that is eternal is like the one that almost really relinquishes the incarnation. It kind of gives it up. Like all these other spirits like want it and want to
Yes,
manifest an incarnation, and the one that actually is eternal is the one that's like, no, here, I don't know.
I think there's something true to
Gives
that
it up.
because it works on a micro as well. I think like you should never like when you want something too bad, you don't get it. You know, there's this thing to that I've noticed in my life, and once you stop trying really hard for something, but still, I don't know, show up for it, things start happening. And another thing I
Yeah.
wanted to say, we're using the word spirit a lot, and I was already mentioning that the Egyptians had like, 9 different terms for parts of a identity. So you have a body, you have a shadow, you have a transformed spirit, you have a spirit that's like a bird after death that can move between realms. You have a spirit that's in the statue that you can feed. Anyway, all these things. And like now that my materialist paradigm has collapsed, I feel like I'm just empty. Um, and there's a possibility to adopt a new language, but I don't have it yet to talk about the spiritual and the enchanted, because now I'm just using spirit for everything. But I think there's probably ways for us to be more precise with our language. It's just hard to,
Mm.
yeah, it's hard to be particular with things that I don't understand. And I wonder if there were cultures and if Christian language would suffice to map all of that. And if it's mappable, it would imply that it's somewhat objective, so that like one of your guests that I listened to, it was a conversation you had 9 months ago. Not sure if you remember. She was into Kabbalah and stuff like that. I was just listening to it while I was
Oh,
folding the laundry.
yeah.
She was telling about an experience when she was a child, um, and she seemed to be able to like see a different realm, a different layer upon reality, and she saw like this stuffed animal and like spiders came out of it. And I wonder if
Mm.
that stuff is
Yeah.
like going on and multiple people would be able to see it at the same time, because that would afford the possibility to talk about a collective realm of consciousness. But I'm not
Mhm.
sure if that's the case, or if it's more like dreams where they're more personalized and we. So that's the
Yeah.
stuff I don't know. I just don't know that. A lot of
That's really
cultures seem
fascinating.
to like uh, look at that as a more objective stuff, but I'm not sure if it's more like individual psychological or collective psychological, or a mix between the two. And I'm really curious if people have insights into that or if you do.
Gosh, I don't know. I remember that conversation. That was Marilee. She's got her own podcast too, which
Yeah,
is
I saw it.
it's actually yeah, it's really good. It weirdly feels like a or a lot of, at least a lot of her episodes kind of feel like a TLC version of like the cult world or something. She'll just get
Yeah,
people's
yeah, I
stories, and I'm like,
saw
this
it.
is
It's
great.
super
Yeah,
cool. I'll link it
it's
down
yeah,
below.
it's so much fun. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
it's called like the Casual Temple or something. But
yeah,
yeah,
casual
she,
temp.
I remember her telling that story, and um, yeah, I don't know. That's sorry to answer your question.
Yeah,
That's fascinating because I was kind of thinking like in my head, if people would see the same thing that she did, but just maybe with a
yeah, yes,
different symbol or something. Like
yes,
she
yes,
she sees this, she sees spiders come out of it. Maybe like an adult would see like scorpions or
yes,
something, but
yes.
not see it. But like weirdly, I feel like some people are kind of, I don't know if more visual is the right word. See, this is where it gets. I'll try to explain it, but like I feel like people, like I feel like everybody, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people can pick up on something. Like you can kind of have something, you just got a weird vibe. Like that thing just gives off a weird
Yeah,
vibe. But then if you actually try to put it into words, like you have to grab at weirdly poetic images. And it's like, what does that feel like to you? And you're like, I don't, because there's nothing you can describe.
no,
So you're like, I don't know, it feels spidery. It feels
yes,
like itchy and
yes,
it's
yes,
crawling on me or something. Yeah.
yeah,
So I feel like maybe there could be other people that had they paid attention enough to that stuffed animal or like looked at it long enough would have been like, oh, that's just, they weirdly kind of, yeah, I guess see it with your mind's eye or
yes,
something. I don't know the right
yes.
way to describe it.
That makes
Um,
sense. You're making sense. Keep going.
because I, I guess that an example, um, maybe this is just, maybe this could kind of be an example that would maybe kind of make sense a little bit more. What I'm trying to get at is, Like there's times personally where like I'll just feel this, like when you have this huge emotion or something, or at least that happens for me, and I feel it in my chest. And the only way I know to describe it is it's like an ocean or like a tide going in and out. And I'm like using like, am I seeing that? Am I seeing a tide going in and out? Like I'm using a poetic imagery. Like you have to grab at things of nature to describe something invisible.
Yeah,
And so like even if I were to be like if someone saw me like that knew me, saw me really stressed and like did that because that feeling just hits me,
yeah,
like they you might describe it that way. Oh, it looks like a wave just hit you or something. And it's so maybe it's something kind of like that.
I
But
think so.
but the other thing is when she was describing the story, it sounded very, very materialistic or something. I remember it sounded like she saw this.
Yes,
So that that blending of the mind's eye, the imagination, and I guess the spirit realm or the emotional, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if that's just more intuitive in a child, and maybe it's because, and maybe getting back to Alice in Wonderland thing too, maybe it's because they just woke out of sleep for 9 months. I mean, they're just waking up, and so all these things are just connected
yeah,
better before they start to separate them and be like, no, this is this, that's that, and so
yes.
maybe it's all, yeah.
I think
That's
we
I
get.
guess that would be how I try to explain it, but I
I
don't
think so too.
know.
I think it's the our left hemispheres get really dominant after a while. And people that don't have that, that never experience that, they still have this magical worldview. Like I was saying in Africa, or people that, didn't go through the digital revolution and the last 500 years. I think there's just much more of that and it makes more sense to them. Um, Whereas we are of the particular, we have this
Mhm.
discerned images. And
Yeah,
yeah, as you were just explaining, it just started making a lot of sense to me. Whereas the spiritual, it can be materialized in some way, but it doesn't have to be. Like it's real regardless. And I think for some people, it can show up like the same way some people think with words, or some people think with images, or a bit of both. I think the spiritual works similarly, and I think it's kind of a stupid question I was asking, where it's like, um, is everyone seeing the same thing? That's still looking through it as if it's material that we're seeing. I think it's beyond that. I think it's like what you're saying with the mind's eye. I think it's like a mind's eye way of seeing things. And those, some people will describe them with very particular language, and other people will be like, oh, I can't fathom this. I can't even begin um, to put particular names to it.
yeah,
But in the Bible,
yeah.
I don't know, what's this thing with Jonah and the whale, where the Peugeot brothers tell this story about it, and they're going to like Sunday school as kids, and they're upset with the way they tell the story because they were like, well, scientifically, we know that it wasn't a fish or something because I don't know, it was something stupid, but it went to the point of when in the Bible it says a certain word, and we translate that to a very particular modern word, it doesn't mean it's the modern thing. Same with like different cultures representing the stories in different way. Like one, if the object is a sword, another culture will maybe do a bow and arrow or like an axe. It's just about
Mhm.
weapon. It's category weapon. Same with
Yeah.
the Jonah and the whale. It's like the category is monster, and and so it's like going past the particulars and going back to the to what they represent.
Original category.
Yeah, the original
Yeah.
category. That's
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it works similar with the spiritual. It's not a very good explanation, but I think it's understandable.
Yeah. No, I think that makes total sense. That I think that's a great explanation. I yeah, I think that's really good too. I and it even ties into a lot of other ideas that I don't know what to do with. Because even us talking about like magic in general and so just you can disregard this. I'm throwing us out there. I don't know if I'll pull it back in. But magic in general and forcing your will into the world and how that seems scary. Like when we mentioned that earlier on in the conversation, that I didn't really bring it up at that time, but that kind of made me think like I wonder if there's legitimacy to that because of just the concept of free will. Like if we're allowed to be in the world. We're allowed to kind of be a particular human being and project our existence in the world. And there's strangely a humility in that. Like I think that's why there's because you could want to not exist or kill yourself, but it's like really if I think if I'm being most humble, I am what I am. And and God allowed me to exist and I will exist. But that's weirdly kind of like being that particular in the world, in the moment, in space and time, just very incarnate, being so incarnate. And it's like that, um, and even coming down with words, so you have a category of monster, but then it's like, I guess the reason I'm saying this is because you have those tribes in Africa where they have maybe more, they think more with their right hemisphere and we're more left hemisphere, but I think there is still a blessing in the way we think because it's
Yeah.
almost like we allow these more and more particular things to exist. So it's like it causes us stumbling blocks. We trip over it, but it's like to them it's monster, but to us it's like a very, very particular fish that we can describe and it's very particular and it's almost like allowed more of it's allowed more existence or something because it's more defined or something like that. I don't even know really how to say it properly. It's almost like allowed to
Yes.
be more incarnate or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
but yeah.
I get it. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's like it radiates more because it's more particular. So it's more understandable, it's more graspable. So
Hmm.
it feels perhaps more real. But I think
Yeah.
the cultures that might be more right hemisphere, it already is like that for them, even when it's less defined. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, you're
they
probably
don't
right.
have to
Yeah.
have been told them like it's this type of this particular thing. But I think for us,
Yeah.
the particular thing, that's when it becomes real because we're materialists.
Yeah, yeah,
I
that's
think
true. Yeah.
that's the thing about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think they did did you ever I think they did a whole episode or Jonathan Peugeot I think did a whole episode on the Jonah story at one time, but I don't even
Probably.
remember what he said anymore. It was a long time ago, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I'd be curious to hear.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get into the other guy that looks like him, his double that you interviewed.
Oh,
This is a
yeah, gosh,
recommendation,
JF
by the way, people
Martel.
listening. I think this is like a really good episode of yours. You guys really got along very well. It was really fun to see.
Oh,
JF
yeah. I
Martel.
forget that I talked to him.
It's
Yeah,
a
he
full
was super
conversation,
cool.
man.
And then yeah, we talked and then we planned on talking again. And then I just every time I would reach out, he was busy. And then I think he at some point got it. I think he changed his phone number, probably all because of me. So I was pestering him too much. No, I'm just kidding. But so I don't even know if but the way I originally contacted him was just through I think just through email on their
Yeah.
website through the Weird Studies podcast. But so I mean, yeah, if you want to, you should reach out to him sometime. He's a
I need to
fascinating guy.
listen to the podcast proper first because I don't
Oh,
feel
okay,
like I
yeah.
should yet. But I'm really excited about it. Uh,
Well, they are all over the place when they're in their podcasts. So you can get a vibe from it. Just click on the ones that sound interesting. Honestly, they all end up being super interesting to me though. Even the ones I'd like see the title, I'm like, I don't really want to listen to that one. I'll listen to it. I'm like, what the heck? How do these guys do it every time?
yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
he's I feel like he would probably be able to talk about the way the natural materialist worldview and just the way the natural world blends with the spirit world more and magic and all those things like
Cool.
way better than I could. That guy is so freaking articulate. That's yeah.
Awesome.
It just yeah, you hear him talk and I'm like, did he think about this stuff for like 50 years? And now he's I don't know. It's just coming out, but
Past
yeah.
lives and stuff.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, past lives. Yeah.
I want to propose a topic. So I do you know Graham Hancock?
Yeah.
So I want
Not super well, but
okay. So I'll basically like lay out what he's about, and then probably people have watched a lot of his stuff. Some people. Anyway, he got me interested in Egypt and psychedelics and whatnot. He's I think he was originally like a journalist, started writing fiction books, and he's now quite famous because he's kept appearing on Joe Rogan's podcast talking about his theories about ancient civilizations, let's say. So he started writing books about this. Um, this cataclysm, like this global collapse, say 13,000 years ago or something. And like he said, there's good scientific evidence for that idea that like 96% of the world population would have collapsed and stuff like that. And then his hypothesis is that there was a civilization before that, that was already thriving, but that like almost completely collapsed at that time. And then remnants of that survived and like laid their seeds in that world, in the new world after 13,000 years ago. And that's his explanation for why there's such universal patterns in myths, in stories from different cultures all over the world. And like afterlife as well, why the Egyptians have this idea of like going through the realm of the dead and needing special passwords for different things, and why that shows up in South America. And I'm just watching this show. It's on Netflix now, Ancient Apocalypse. Quite interesting. Um, and I'm like, this is like so explainable to me because of the the spiritual realm and like uh, the way reality works. Like there's human universal patterns that are you know, that are part of us. It's not just in the brain, because that's like sometimes
Mm.
archaeologists explain it like that and he criticizes that. But it's like we're all tapping into this reality and mapping it in somewhat different ways, but there's a lot of commonalities to them, which is why I think there's some truth to there being like sort of like this objectivity to the spiritual. Um, and yeah, he's an extremely open-minded guy, super interesting. Like there's a reason he's generated so much uh interest in ancient civilizations and like flood myths and stuff like that. But then he comes up with this materialistic explanation that there has to have been a culture before that that told them all about this and that taught them all these things, and that's why things seem similar everywhere. um
That's
but yeah,
interesting.
that's just something I was thinking about, and I just finished it, so I wanted to speak to you about it, because otherwise, if I do it next week, I will just forget. But yeah, what do you think about that?
Does does he say that there was like in all the different cultures, is there like the flood or the destruction of the world happens and then they're visited by someone from a
Yeah,
faraway place who tells them stories? Is
yeah. There's
that
like seven sages
is
usually in all these
oh,
cultures, and like in most of these stories, there is actually like seven sages, but they have different names, and there's like bearded individuals, and it's like very similar. Yeah,
that's really interesting. That's weird. And they come and usually it's like they come from across the sea or from a
yeah,
faraway place, like a strange.
exactly.
Yeah, I think I've heard that before. I don't yeah, I don't know. So I don't know what I think about it. What so you kind of said there's like the way he describes it is kind of materialistic, like there was actual physical people that came and showed
Yeah,
up and revealed to them this stuff after the flood. But did you say you also think there could be a possibility that it's just a real actual, I don't know, it's spiritual realm or story or pattern that we're all conscious, like we're attuned to inside, and that would be
yeah.
more of
I
a
think
mystical
that's why
way?
it
Or,
happens like that. I think there's a reason it's seven sages. I think the flood makes sense symbolically as well, but I think the flood could have actually like probably the floods actually happened and they were actually that big. But I think it's a stretch to say um, there was this particular civilization with these people that were like super technologically advanced. I think that's more of a, I think there's probably a symbolism to the sages and to seven of them bringing civilization with them or some sorts. So I think it doesn't have to be that there were like some Atlantic people that like survived and
yeah,
passed everything on to everyone all around the world and that were so seafaring. And I think it's almost beside the point.
yeah,
It's more what I'm trying to say. Like he fixates on
yeah.
that, which I find interesting.
That is super interesting.
Like it
Yeah, I
grips
don't
us,
even know
grips
what
us
to make
super
of that.
hard.
Like, I feel like I get, yeah, I feel like him fixating on the physicality of it. I feel like I could maybe go down some sort of trail and almost be in error doing the opposite or being like this is just um so like I don't know the seven people coming out of the sea or something is like these seven beings coming up from like your subconscious or something like
Yeah.
that. It's like yeah, that could. like in seven not even being like a literal number, it just being like the meaning of the number seven or something. Like
Yeah,
it's the reason it's seven throughout all these cultures is because seven has more of a meaning to it than an actual accounting number. It's got
yeah,
a certain feel or certain vibe, you know, the idea of completion, wholeness. It's like
yes,
these the yeah, this full I don't want to say wisdom, like this full there's like these different ideas or concepts that are bubbling up and they're and there's and it's complete because there's seven of them, and so these seven come forth and
yeah,
reveal to us
yeah,
how to live in the world. And it's like you could do that either coming up from the ocean or coming down from above. They came down
yeah,
and
yeah. No,
enlightened
yeah, I
me.
see
Like
what
it's
you're
like
saying.
you have the waters in either way, and it's like you could. So like I feel like I could maybe try to throw symbolism on it like that, but weirdly that feels like I'm almost making it too spiritual. And I'm thinking there's got to be somewhere in the middle where, like you were talking about the people in Africa, where it's just like it's
Yeah,
both, and it doesn't have to. But I don't know how to do that with these stories.
but
Of
I
like
think you're right. I
I
think
don't
that's
know.
excellent because I'm in, I'm in peril of doing the same thing as you. Where I'm like I'm trying to completely spiritualize it, but I think you make
Yeah,
a really good point. I think there's like some
yeah,
truth to it, um, but then it manifests in this symbolic manner, and then the water is significant as well. What you're saying, that's really cool.
yeah.
Actually.
Because even I mean, well, I guess the other thing too is with the numbers, like it could even be condensed in like, I mean, you could have 1,000 people be one if they're unified under one thing.
Yes,
So like you
there
could
you go.
have like yeah, so you could have like I don't know, five people and they're all committed to this one idea, and then five more people are committed to this other idea, and it's like what's going through my mind. It might be a really bad example. It's just kind of like the Spartans or that movie Sparta. It's like they're committed to this lifestyle, and so you have like I don't know, 10,000 people that are committed to this, 3,000 people over here that are committed to the goddess Athena, and it's like so that's one with the, and then you have the 3,000 is another one, and then you get these seven, and they complete. And so these, I don't know. That's, I guess that's one way to go with it, but I don't, but that's what I mean. I don't know if that's just being too vague about stuff. But then
Yeah,
I don't know how particular it, when it gets to ancient stuff too, though, it's like language just seems to be more poetic. Like even when you get into like looking at Hebrew versus Greek, it just seems like Hebrew has a way where like one example is in Job. I think she says, where Job's wife says to Job, "Why don't you curse God and die?" I think that word curse can actually mean bless too at the same time. And it's like, well, which it's like it's got Hebrew has this weird way of being more fluid. And so even in language like that, it's like, oh, well, they seven, is it particularly seven or is it just seven? And
that's so cool
I
actually.
have no idea.
Yeah, it's like they're
Yeah.
less particular than we are, of course. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what my dad was
Because
saying.
it's kind of
Go
yeah,
ahead.
like the like you mentioned earlier with the category of monster, it's like it starts kind of, I guess, with monster, then it has to get more particular, and so
Yeah.
they might be using a kind of yeah, different language or something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
and we're losing
Well,
translation because
yeah,
we're trying to be so particular with it, and
yeah,
then you lose the possibilities of the sentences and the words.
mm. Yeah, yeah. What was it your I didn't mean to cut you off. Your dad was saying.
No, he was just making a point early on in the conversation that I had with him last week about the faith, where especially in the Dutch translation that we have, uh, and it's about healing, and Jesus is trying to heal someone. It's like, have faith in me, uh, uh, and you'll be healed or something like that. And it was more about having faith like he does, um,
Yeah,
like
I
he
remember him
has
saying
in
that. That
God.
was good.
And that was really cool. And then Cal elaborated on it, which was really helpful for me. And it helps me to, yeah. Cal was saying that when you pray in Jesus' name, it's like that you pray to have the faith that Jesus has, or something like that
Mm.
in your prayer. I hope I'm representing what he said well, but it helps me. It's like praying like Jesus did, like that's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
best prayer you could give. It's like a prayer
yeah,
filled with faith. Like you imbue. This is an interesting one, like, to come back to the circle thing. Like you can see the prayer as a circle. We're imbuing it with Holy Spirit by saying in Jesus' name. So you're making it
yeah,
concentrated.
yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That makes total sense. Yeah, yeah. I like that. I remember that part of your dad's conversation. I like that. That was good. I don't think I had even heard that before, but
No,
it's
yeah, he's
nice.
funny like that. He's got little nuggets like that. I hope to bring more of him into the world in a, you know, consumable manner. It's
Yeah,
not a lot of people are gonna
consumable
buy
man.
like his 100 euro book on Amazon, so it's difficult to like
Oh,
get his ideas.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. Does he have audiobooks or no?
No, no,
It's,
that's the
seems like
thing.
most people listen to audiobooks
Yeah,
now.
that's what it is. Maybe I'll ask him to record it for himself. Just to read
Yeah, you
the
could do
whole
that.
book.
Yeah, maybe because yeah, a lot of times people will be like, "Oh, I read this book, I read that book," and then they just listen to it, and I'm like, "Does it count?" I guess
Yeah,
it does though, because people
it's
just go through books.
it's funny like that. I got a couple minutes left. Anything you still wanna bring up before we wrap up?
Um, Not off the top of my head. I mean, I think everything we talked about will probably spark a ton more thoughts for me. Like, I'm
Yeah,
sure it'll just,
and I hope for
I'll
people
probably
as
be
well.
hitting you up in the, yeah, in the signal chat or something later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't, nothing off the top of my head right now. So, what about you? You got anything else?
No, I think I'm pretty much there for now. I'm mostly like there's a lot of things that are kind of for me up in the air right now that we spoke about, and then I'm hoping some people will be able to tie in the comment section.
Mm,
So this airs next week, so I'm hopeful for that. And if not, hopefully
okay.
our dreams and our sleep will help us connect those patterns and our daydreams,
Yeah,
and we'll talk. And yeah, it's been super fun to talk to you again, Jason. It's I cherish having
yeah, me
people
too,
like you
Lucas.
through the digital realm that I can speak to about the spiritual
Yeah, same to
and
you,
all these
man.
other things.
Same to you. It's been great talking to you, Lucas. Yeah, we'll
Absolutely.
talk again, I'm sure. So,
Absolutely. You have a good Sunday, yeah. Thank you so much for coming on.
all right. Yeah, you too.
Bye
See
bye.
ya.